Hey guys! Okay, so we are talking about specialized cells. This is section 2.1. We talked about the cell in general the last time that we were together, and now we're going to look at specialized cells within our body. So these are specialized cells within the body as well as plants that really help carry out the functions for us to stay alive. And they have adapted to be able to perform certain functions that are so incredibly important for us. So the first cell that we have is the ciliated cell. We can find these types of cells lining our trachea and airways because their main function is to waft mucus and bacteria and dust away from the lungs. So you can see these little hair-like projections that are at the top and look kind of like little squiggles. Those are the cilia. That's the ciliated cell on these, okay? That's going to be very important, especially when we get to our unit on our airways and gas exchange. After the cilia, we will move on to a nerve cell. If I can get it to come up here. Okay, so this is a picture of a nerve cell in the body. Most of us have seen this. What you'll notice about the nerve cells, it's often very long, and these are able to conduct electrical impulses. And then some have what's called the myelin sheath, which is a fatty layer to protect this long axon. So it's important to note carrying electrical impulses from the brain to the spinal cord are what these perform. And then we'll also look a little bit more heavily into these when we cover our unit on the nervous system. Moving right along, the red blood cell. For the red blood cell, this is kind of a little precursor to another unit, which would be human transport and how all of our blood vessels and veins work to get blood all throughout our body. But for your red blood cell, it's going to be very important to note there is no nucleus in a red blood cell. Scientists think it has adapted to not need one because there's so much going on that they can be a little bit more efficient without the nucleus. Ultimately, this is what also aids in giving it its shape. It is that biconcave disc, so it's pinched in the middle and then plumper on the outsides. Also, red blood cells contain hemoglobin, which is what oxygen can bond to. It's going to be very important for you to know, keep in mind, a red blood cell is a human cell, but it is one that has adapted without a nucleus. And its ultimate function is to transport oxygen around the body. And then we have the sperm cell, another cell that we'll get into when we cover the reproductive unit. Interesting things about the sperm cell, just understanding its structure and function. The tail, or the flagellum, is on the end of every sperm cell, and it allows it to move and swim. It's the only cell in the human body that moves in this fashion, for males, of course. And then your nucleus contains the genetic information. It actually carries half of the genetic information because it will, at some point, if it's successful, merge with the ovum or the egg cell, gathering the next half of DNA to create a new organism. And then we'll move on to the egg cell or the ovum. And it's important to note these are very large cells. They have a large amount of cytoplasm that contains yolk. It's made of lots of protein and fat, and the nucleus, again, carries all the genetic information, and it carries half of our chromosome number. And then as far as function, like the sperm cell, this is used in reproduction. So this is a reproductive cell. Now we're going to move on to plant cells. So now we just looked at human cells. Here are our plant cells. This is a root hair cell. The special features of the root hair cells is that it gives a large amount of surface areas to the roots. So these are found in the root hair cell, found in the root. And you can see that this extension would give it a lot of surface area for absorption. So their basic requirement is to absorb water and mineral ions, and then, of course, anchor the plant firmly in the soil. Next, for our plant cells that are specialized cells, we have the xylem, also called xylem vessels. Now, with the xylem, it's important to know they're long, thin cells arranged end to end, pretty much forming a tube. So I like to picture a straw. So these are inside of the plants, and this is where ultimately water transport and mineral ion transport takes place to get that water and mineral ions from the roots up through the stem and out to the leaves. What allows the xylem vessels to be structured in the way where they lack cell walls and cell ends inside this central portion to be ultimately like a tube is this strong wall lined with lignin. So that lignin is what's going to provide structure and support. And ultimately, it also lacks cytoplasm and a nucleus because these cells are unique in that they're wide open. Okay. And then moving on to probably the most popular cell that you will see depicted in our test questions is the palisade cell or palisade mesophyll cell. This is a regular plant cell. It's the ones that are found with the most chloroplasts because it is those cells that are very much in charge of absorbing the sunlight to create energy through photosynthesis for our plants. They are column-shaped cells, so they usually stand like a rectangle, long ways up and down. And they are packed, again, packed with chloroplasts. They trap sunlight to make food for the plant through photosynthesis. And when we look at our plant units, we will talk a lot more about the palisade mesophyll cell. But these are the specialized cells that Cambridge loves to highlight for you guys. I've also listed a few others that are going to be helpful on your note sheet. So go ahead, get out those note sheets, fill them out, and get ready for that check for understanding. All right, guys.